a lot of people look at dollars and cents and they say, what's my income? What's my cash on cash return? That's it. Right. And it's kind of like, that's not every reason why you invest. There's a lot of people out there that look at many other reasons, as you should. Right.
Yes.
Well, I think that you're getting at that you need to understand your total return for sure.
Yeah.
And that it's hard to understand. And what Dave hinted at earlier is this deal may outperform. It should actually do even better on an overall return. Yeah. And in cash in the short run. Welcome back to REI Hot Seat. Andrew Hines here with David Hulshof and Jacob Campanaro.
We got a full house.
In studio.
In studio.
All right.
Back. Second episode back. Dave, you weren't here for the last one.
Oh, but, wow. I shouldn't have said that. Well, thank you for having me this time.
But yes, we are. You wouldn't even know it's a different studio, but it is. And we said this last time. But yeah, super happy to have the new space. And today we're talking about a 17-unit building in Goderich.
Yes.
So Dave's got the numbers all queued up here. So we're gonna go full nerd out on this deal.
Nerd out. So I will.
And Dave, where's Goderich?
Towards Bruce Power.
I was going to say, is there a power plant around?
So it's 50 minutes, 60 minutes outside of Bruce Power, but still in that general area.
Yeah.
Okay. So
on Lake Huron.
Actually,
on Lake Huron.
A coastal town.
So, if you're driving up, you'd go, Owen Sound? Or is it further London way?
I'm using your...
You just pull up the map there. There you go. You just got to zoom out a little.
There we go, fellas. A little too
There
far.
we go. So we're a little bit further from the peninsula.
Yep.
You're kind of Grand Bend area.
Probably an hour from Grand Bend, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not even an hour from Grand Bend.
There we go.
There we go. Beautiful Hanover, Listowel, Goderich. This gives some context.
Yeah.
So this deal just got sent to me. It's not ours. I have some of the information, so as much as we have, we'll share. I don't have all of the details. From a high level, 17 unit, it is purpose built, steel roof. A bunch of the utilities are actually passed over to the tenants. The hydro, apparently the water is attached to the hydro on a billing. But these numbers show, I think, 62 or 6,800 that the landlord is paying. So cause for an investigation there and what's being covered, what's not. There are 12, I think, 2 beds. Mostly comprised, 11 2 beds, and the rest 1 beds. So a big building. So.
You said water's attached to the hydro bill? Is it always?
Apparently. Well,
in my experience, it's like always together. Is it not?
No, because it's together. It's together.
Yeah.
No, it's together when it's a residential house because
but commercial
they
is sometimes
bill
different.
It each city's different. There's some cities
sometimes
that
the city will bill it direct.
Right,
Okay.
and then but with apartment buildings because you have separately metered electrical is what we should be calling it.
Oh yeah, hydro combines the two, right? Hydroelectric. Right?
Hydro is water and electrical, so we have separately metered electrical, and then we usually typically have a central water meter, which gets charged to the landlord. So in this case, I guess what they're saying is that they have individual water meters per unit. I guess. Yeah. I know. This is this is new to you as well.
If you want to announce to an American that you're Canadian, say hydro when you're talking about electric.
Use that term, eh?
No, they'll be like, what? Hydro? No, we don't have any water dams here. Like, it's just electric.
It's a good learning lesson. It's good. So thank you. That was good clarity. Good. See, this is why we do this.
This is just for fun.
So
fun detour.
It is seller wants 3.2. We've got it underwritten at 3. It's a 6 cap. I'll show you why I like that at that number. A lot of the units have been renovated. I don't know to what degree, and I haven't seen them, so we don't know how many. Okay. And then you'll see on the actual rent roll that we just elected the first 11 units to be 2 beds. That's not actually the case.
Okay.
Sequentially,
it's not the case.
Correct. So you're going to see a little bit of...
But those rents are correct for the 2 beds? Like you have a $780 rent on a 2 bed, that's correct?
Not sure. So it's either a 2 or a 1, yeah.
So like that's just a list of rents for the building.
So the actual rents are accurate. You
just don't know whether they're 1s or 2s.
So we just left it there for the sake of the discussion.
And it's safe to assume that all the low rents haven't been renoed, or at least not significantly.
Yeah. And obviously there's question marks like a 2-bed getting $2,600. A lot.
That is a question mark.
Like a lot.
Maybe it's a midterm rental or something.
Well, one of the things, just a little caveat here, we're looking at a building that had a true accessible unit. And it was wild to see the gap between what a normal market rent is and one that is wheelchair accessible.
Are you saying you can get more on the handicap?
Substantially more.
Well,
and if you actually think about it, how many buildings have you guys been through, and how many true accessible units have you seen?
Only new product, right? Nothing retrofit, but new build. You'll see it.
Yep.
And when we talk about truly accessible, in my opinion, at least, truly accessible, like it is, countertops are lower, light switches are lower, bathtubs are barrier free.
The bathroom itself,
the kitchen sink is set up so that you can actually go under with a wheelchair, like a tabletop, so that you can actually wash your dishes. Like there's a lot of criteria. The sight glass in the door is lower. There's a lot of things that go into a true handicap accessible unit. That when people think, oh, handicap accessible, not necessarily.
That's just a ramp.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then it's helpful to separate, because there are achievements you need to hit MLI Select.
Correct.
And so, anyways, the side note is there's such few, in most of the buildings I've seen, to your point, especially the retrofit, you're never seeing it. Yeah. And there's a need for accessible units.
You can get more. Interesting.
So, not saying that's what
Does
this
it
is.
make sense to invest in that? You could do like a handicap accessible building where all units are handicap accessible.
So the Port Dover one we showed a couple weeks back, that has one unit that is accessible, not to the criteria for MLI Select, but it is almost a true one, and then the ability to make the other one on the ground floor one as well.
Yeah.
And it's like, seeing some of the rentals, the rates for that,
very interesting,
probably worth it.
And and so are you saying, is this unit accessible, or that's just kind of a shot?
That was a tangent that I wanted to go on.
It was a theory
journey with me that I would say that 2,600 is probably pretty high, so there's probably something.
Yeah, it seems interesting given the other rents there. But I like these tangents because I feel like that's what keeps people around. Maybe it is nerding out on the numbers.
That's why I wanted to take you guys on that journey that I just found out. So this stabilized here, just to context, we used just a couple of data points, so I don't want people to think for sure it's 18 on a 2-bed. We need to do more due diligence. I suspect it's actually higher, to be honest with you, but we'll leave it for now, not really needing to go into that.
I feel like a town like Goderich could have like a really sweet potential for short-term rentals too. If you could take a few of those units and rent them out, whether you wanted to do it yourself or just rent it to somebody else for a slight premium, and they do it.
There's that, and then even just talking Goderich, Southampton, Kincardine. There's a couple more I'm missing. Sorry. Somebody's town that I just missed. The rents are pretty darn good in those towns, and they're actually beautiful towns. Like it's not, and that's the thing. If you've never left Toronto and you sit in Toronto and go, "Who the heck is Goderich?" Right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't know, but like if you actually go out there and you tour these towns, I would see myself living in these towns. They're actually very nice. I understand why the rents are where they are, and they're not like 3-season beach towns. Like they're actual year-round towns. They're on the lake. They're nice. They're beautiful. If you ever look at Blog TO, I feel like weekly I get an ad that pops up on my phone being like, "Oh, the must-go-to beach town," and it's an influencer chick in the photo, and it's like, okay, and it's usually Goderich, Kincardine, Southampton, like they're always there.
It'll be interesting to look at what the average household income is in some of those areas. Yeah, because I realize there's a lot of retirees and stuff, but like I bet you the average it's well above average out there.
Yeah,
that would make sense. You get a lot of like farmers, families that have passed their farms down, like agriculture, and then there's I don't know what other industries they have. They probably do. A lot of them work for Bruce Power, which is high income for the people who work there, right?
Yep.
So
that would be so probably worth us looking at. But one of the things, some of these towns, to your point, Jake, you go out there and you go, wow, like this is
cool.
Beautiful.
No, they're cool towns.
Yeah, cool place.
This summer, if you guys don't have anything to do on a weekend, go drive. Like, go take a drive out there. They're cool.
Yeah,
beautiful spots.
That's the time to do that. Don't do it any other time.
Don't do it in the winter.
Yeah. So 26, we see a couple at 1,800. So that's where we used it, and a couple other data points, and then 1,500. So we know that's achievable. Let's go down here. Laundry income, they're not charging for parking, and I don't know the situation with storage. Okay.
They're not charging, but that would be one of those things you would suggest that they do.
Yeah. Well,
in the long run, anyway.
Case by case, right? So we're just did another deal. It's a elderly population in the building. Like vast majority of them are 70 and 80.
Yeah.
And everything's, the building's running smooth. There's storage. They're not being charged for storage, and they're not being charged for parking. I'm having a call with the soon-to-be owner, the purchaser, and he's like, I want to do that because he saw us talking about it. And it's like, okay, just the caution here is, do you want to piss them all off? Because that's going to happen with these older people.
Yeah.
It's always a art and science blend, right? Do you want to do it?
And you have to remember the demographic and the location that you're leasing in, right? Like if you're a typical Toronto owner, you can charge $150, $200 a spot at your building. Great.
Yeah.
You get into Kincardine, nobody's walking anywhere. There's no buses, right? Like this isn't a friendly walking town. Like you need a car, and to start charging people for parking, if it's not the norm, like do research in the town. Go talk to other apartment owners, see what's out there, reply to Kijiji ads for leasing in buildings and say, hey, there's parking included. Like you can really dive deep into research in these towns. But what I've seen typically is, okay, like a one parking spot will come with a unit. If you want two, then we're charging you, right? Yeah. And then it's like, okay, great, you get a little $50 there, $50 here. But be careful of that, because that's something that, I see a lot of realtors add in. They'll say, oh no, there's storage income and there's parking, even if there's not. And they'll say, well, there's potential. And you can say, but realistically, there's not.
Yeah. So laundry income, no parking, no storage. Taxes, actual, property management, 5%. We're using that for CMHC numbers. Out there, might be a little bit higher.
Now, quick question on that, Dave.
4.5.
So CMHC's 4.25, 4.5.
Yeah, I think right? Somewhere in there. Yeah.
Last I checked, it was 4.25.
4.25.
Are you now using 5% across the board?
We just kind of put 5% in there, because if you're out in Kitchener, you can get 5%. As you go to kind of Goderich, it's probably a little bit higher.
Smaller units, you're going to pay more. Like if you're just like a 1 or 2 unit, you're going to pay like 7% usually, right? Yeah. So it's just these larger volume units where you're getting the lower priced management.
And I love diving into that, because it's a question I get a lot when I send numbers out to people. They say, oh, 4.25 management. Come on, man. I go, no, but wait, you're missing the 555 salaries that we're not actually employing anybody. Yeah. Because if you add up, and
it's a great point.
I ask people to do this, add up the 4.25 number with the 555 salaries, and then make that a percentage of the gross revenue.
Yeah.
And it usually comes out to about 6%, 6.5%.
Yeah.
Right.
Here it's 20, between the two, it's 22,000.
And so what's 22,000 on the gross as a percentage?
Who's got a calculator?
You do, in front of you.
I can't. This is Windows. I'm all thumbs. So it's going to screw the whole thing up.
Okay, I got a phone here. What am I calculating?
Dave's using my computer today. And he's a Mac guy, and I'm a PC guy.
What am I calculating right now?
22,000 in the gross. See, this is what I'm saying. Gross
we
income.
need a percentage. So
you got to give me what the percentage is as a dollar value.
Yeah. So gross income's 256,000.
So 256,000 times, we said 0.0425, right?
No, you're doing it the other way.
Well, we got to figure out what the management dollar amount is, right?
No, we know the management dollar amount.
22,000.
That's
22,000 divided by the gross.
526.
So 22,000.
256.
22,000 divided by 256. You said 1,000.
Guys, I promise we do this for a living.
8%.
8.59%.
Come on.
There you go.
Give me some points.
There you go.
8%.
So 8%. So using those two numbers, I think that's very realistic for actual property management in Goderich.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. So when you combine the salaries and the management, the 425 makes perfect sense. You're not understating the management, because yes, at 8.5, you should be able to find management.
I hope so.
The only thing that might put you over that slightly is leasing fees, because your management rate should be more like 5 or 6, and then your leasing fees might take.
And then it depends
depending
on
how much turnover.
There's so many different models. Like that's where it's like, okay, now we're really getting into the nuance of like, if you were looking at a building with 50% vacancy, I would say yes, include a lease up fee, because right off the bat you're going to be hit with a month's rent, a month's rent. But if there's just natural turnover, natural vacancy, like okay, how much do you want to account for on your turnover, right? Do you want to be putting in a percentage of that for that? So anyways,
I would feel if it was me, the 8.5% feels more than sufficient.
I would just use that and run with it, right?
The caveat being, these these types of markets, the snow out there is crazy sometimes.
Yes.
And your snow plow, get a little expensive.
But that's a maintenance number, right? Versus
it just sort of depends where you
versus a
catch it. So
management?
salaries, grass cutting, snow removal, we can move that down to maintenance.
Right.
It's kind of
Right.
Maintenance and labor on this is almost.
I like to
1,200.
I like to target a 35% OPEX or more, right? That's kind of what I like to see on these things. The reason why I really wanted to dive into that and why I'm making such a big deal of it is because I have so many people that come to me and they say, I'm taking your 555 salaries, but I'm also doing 7% management. And I'm like, you're running at a 48% OPEX for, like, I'm like, come on. Like,
to your point, Jake, on this particular deal, which we'll go over, but we're at 32% OPEX.
Perfect.
So we're bang
You're
on.
in the
So
right.
it's a
You're
is
good
that
deal.
where you see most of them fall? Like where are most of the deals you're looking at?
You're going to be at least my opinion, you're going to be anywhere from like, call it 30 to 37 is kind of where I see
sort of
things land.
quantify it. So if we look at an old building with terrible rents, your OPEX is going to be much higher.
Like 45 or
I've
something?
seen 60 before, right?
Okay, yeah.
Because it's sort of putting in all the mix and make the cake. If you see a building like this, which is,
a mix.
got good strong rents, but there's some upside, I don't want to see 50. That would be crazy. And I know if I see 25, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Or there's some.
So you would expect this building with the mix, it's got several $800 rents, but it's also got some $1,800 rents.
32
this
makes me very
this should
comfortable.
be right in the middle of the road,
Yeah.
which is anywhere from 30 to 35, let's call it,
Yeah.
right?
And this is
so-
the quick math that, people who do this all day, every day, start to pick up on.
And listen, you can drive that number down. If you end up buying like a 100-unit building and you have on-site management and you have very good economy of scale there, you can drive that number into the 20s.
Probably
Right,
low
27,
20s.
20. Like I've seen new buildings running at 25, true 25.
Yep.
So we're just talking about smaller,
Yeah.
right, older assets that are smaller. They tend to end up around that 30-ish mark.
Yeah, and,
right?
and if you get into if everything's metered, like the towns in Walkerton, we drove that even lower, right?
Yeah.
That actually got, I think, below 20 because everything was metered.
Yeah.
Like everything. But as a good rule of thumb, that 30 range for most buildings on a kind of a hybrid turnkey value add, you're bang on. To your point, 30, 35
nice.
is
That's
is
a good
beautiful.
shortcut, though, even if you're looking at deals, like before you even get in, look at the numbers in depth like this, just run some quick math, take what you if you can get a rent roll, take that number and just do some multiplication.
It really
and it's like even when I'm just sitting at lunch with a client or something like that, and we're doing really quick math, I'll just be like, okay, rent roll. Okay, what's your gross?
Gross rents. They
That-
probably have that on a lot of the listings,
Yeah,
right?
gross rents is
pretty easy to come by.
quite easy to come by. So we'll find gross rents. I'll literally slap like a 35% OPEX on it, and I'll say, okay, very, very rough.
Yeah.
But here's your
Does
NOI.
this make sense? Are we in the ballpark?
Yeah, here's your NOI, and then what's your cap rate based off that NOI. So within 10 seconds, I can calculate like a very quick cap rate.
And that just saves so much time if you're looking at a lot of buildings to know which ones it makes sense to do a detailed analysis.
Literally, that's what the team's goal is. You start running it, and you're looking at 3% cap rate. It's like, well, we're not going to run the numbers.
We'll skip that one. We'll go to one that shows 5.
Yeah,
or
and you can do,
6,
and that's where price per door also comes in helpful, right?
Yeah.
Because if we do this and it's a deal like this and it's $300 a door, it's not worth running.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, are we getting nerdy enough on this one? I had somebody ask in a comment they wanted us to get a little more deeper,
let's keep going.
Asking
Now,
ye shall receive, yes.
granted, I mean, I don't know if that's everybody, so feel free to post in the comments if you feel the same.
Everybody but those two people.
Yeah.
One person.
There's obviously, we're trying to cater to the mean here, right to the middle.
And so
just enough.
let's keep running through this, and I have a topic of conversation I want to jump into once we're finished reviewing.
Yeah. So we put a purchase price of $3 million. Then we were running this. So this is taking the deal exactly as is, sending it to CMHC, and using their standard program. Kind of what we've been doing, call after call. Right? So loan 2.5 and change million, down payment $450K. We build in land transfer tax. People get hung up on this all the time. A lender fee and a broker fee. That is not our fee. We're talking about the lender to do the deal and the broker that's going to help the lending side of it.
So in the new sheet, Dave, we're going to put mortgage broker fee.
Honestly.
Because I get the same thing every time.
But
They're
you
like, oh, I'm
get
paying your fee.
salaries?
I'm like, no.
Salaries?
Just like-
Just
Yeah.
put MTG in front
I'm
of
gonna-
that.
You know what? We're going to update it for the
Because
next
then
one.
they'll know MTG. People know that's mortgage.
Because here's the deal. I want to account for it because I don't want to be under. This is the amount of capital you need to close this deal, and I don't want to be under.
Yeah. And that's critical because, like, obviously the simple sheets don't truly tell you what you need to calculate, what you need to have to close, and that's the number that matters. Like, how much do you got to bring to the lawyer's office?
Yeah. So this is a pretty accurate number. If anything, it might be a little high. Then we've got closing costs, so legals, your reports, right? So environmentals and all that fun stuff. So $585,000 cash to close this deal, including everything. We've done a 4.5% interest rate at 40-year amortization, which I think, given where we are in the market, is good. Built a little bit of a buffer. If you're watching bonds, they're all over, but they're trending upwards as of late. So we may need to adjust this if that continues, but 4.5 is pretty comfortable. Slide over here. What do we see? So debt cover, again, just for the listeners, we want to hit a 1.2 debt cover. This is a 1.28, so we're a little bit over, which is nice.
With the conventional CMHC?
Conventional CMHC at 4.5 interest and sending the deal as is, and it's 5.5% cash on cash.
What's the total in again? You said 585?
585.
Okay.
Yep.
And so you're 585. And what interest rate are you running there?
4.5.
So at 585,000 invested, you're getting 32,000 back a year.
Correct.
And your cash on cash, do you still have that on this?
It's 5.5%.
5.5.
Yeah. So that is at $3 million purchase price, and that's doing absolutely nothing. That's building in $3,000 for appliances, $2.5 for CapEx reserve. Everything's built into this.
Yeah.
So I would suspect your actual cash flow would be higher.
Yeah. On the surface, all in all, this looks decent, right?
Yeah, we like it.
There's makings here of a good deal. And the topic I wanted to just jump on quickly, because you said it right when we started the podcast. You said steel roof, right? And it clicked, and I went, you know what? I've had a number of questions recently from clients that have reached out and said, Jacob, how do you quantify CapEx items? And I don't think we've actually talked
this yesterday.
No, it's a popular topic, and I don't think we've actually talked about it. And so as soon as you said steel roof, I went, I'm gonna bring this up. How do we quantify CapEx items? And what a CapEx item is, it's capital expenditure. So it's an item, it's a life cycle item in the building that you're upgrading that does not directly affect growth of income. Correct me if I'm wrong. So when we're talking about these items, we're talking about roof, boiler, windows, right? Some people argue hallway maintenance, stuff like that, but I like to consider hallway painting, carpet, if there's carpet. So these are items that aren't going to directly increase your rent. This is not unit turn, but it's items that are necessary for the life expectancy of the building or the economic life of the building. And so,
well, you can't never change your roof because it'll start to leak. So you got to do it. So and the year you do it, if you were to record that all as an expense that year, it'd be a pretty bad year. So people don't do that. Their accounting doesn't do that. You capitalize it and you spread the cost of that out over many years. The same thing is done with these spreadsheets just to capture what it is that you have to budget for. So yes, on a cash basis, anyone buys this deal, you're doing better than that because you are not replacing the roof this year. Hopefully not.
Well,
maybe you
it's
are.
Steel roof. Hopefully you're not replacing in the next 20 years,
and the
right?
thing
We'll
the
see.
CMHC does is they paint with a broad brush, right?
Yeah.
So your maintenance and labor expense is going to be the same on a building with a steel roof to a building with a flat roof that's going to need to be replaced in a year. And that's where you need good advisory to come with you and say, hey, look, because we've done other deals and we say, look, we should probably account for a larger CapEx number coming in the next year or two based on X, right? So a deal like this, I haven't been inside, but certainly the steel roof, if the owners kind of cascaded that style through the whole building, you're probably not going to come close to this for quite some time.
So you just outperform your.
And is there? And I'll be the consumer right now and say, so is there a way of capturing dollar per dollar what a steel roof is going to be versus a shingle roof?
I'm sure we could quantify it, right?
I'm sure there's a way to quantify. I don't think there's a direct correlation dollar for dollar.
The average shingle roof you're probably doing every 10 to 12 years, as early as 6 years, depending on attic ventilation. I don't know what this structure looks like, but if the attic ventilation is good, then they could get 20 years out of that roof. But if it's bad, they might, one of the flips I did, the shingles were 6 years old and they were curling.
Yeah.
And we pulled them off. you'll just see that sometimes. So with steel, there are other issues too, though, right? Because if you have rodent problems in your area, mice and rats the ones that can climb can get right under there and have easy access to your house. So there is a negative to steel roofs. But I know, like in a place like Naples, Florida, like if you don't have a steel roof, that's a major negative because of the sun, because of just how quickly it burns
just cooks
shingles.
the shingles.
You need every 10 years you need a new roof in that area.
Yeah, and the way I've always worked to quantify it is you can adjust the cap rate, right? So if you have a building with a bunch of CapEx done, new boiler, new roof, new windows, new hallways,
you drop the cap rate a bit.
We can slightly adjust that cap rate to say, okay, in this area I would typically want to see something like a 5 and a quarter.
Yep.
But you know what? Because of that, we're actually, instead of going to 5 and a quarter, we're going to keep it at a 5, right? Because you don't have to spend that in the future.
Yeah. Like I look at just for clarity, like price and cap rate is like on a pulley system, right?
Yeah.
So it's like if your cap rate's changing, price is going to go in the corresponding direction. So to your point, if a lot of CapEx has been done, it's a nicer building, we're going to pay more for it, which thus will have a lower cap rate.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, because I think it's just a topic that I like, because a lot of people look at dollars and cents and they say, what's my income, what's my cash on cash return, that's it. Right. And it's kind of like, that's not every reason why you invest. There's a lot of people out there that look at many other reasons, as you should, right?
Yes. Well, I think that you're getting at that you need to understand your total return for sure.
Yeah.
And that it's hard to understand. And what Dave hinted at earlier is this deal may outperform. It should actually do even better on an overall return. Yeah. And in cash in the short run, but like if this building, for instance, we don't know, but if in 5 years you got to do the windows and the boiler, that's a bad year, and you're going to want to be budgeting for that now. Like you're going to have to look at that as almost part of your investment.
Like for acquisition, you're 1 year at a glance. The pro forma that we do on this team, it's great for how much of a mortgage can I get?
Yeah.
What does my general investment look like? But people should also be looking at maybe like a 5-year spread. And then what they can do is when we get the building condition report, there's that schedule at the back, my all favorite schedule.
Bring this up.
Which is either the last page or the first page. I don't know whoever does it, but it's a schedule of usually goes up to 20 years?
Yeah.
Right?
When you're going to have to do stuff.
20 years, 25 years, depending on it. And then you can, usually the inspector will say, what do you want your threshold to be? Right? And I usually say $5,000. Right, so anything over $5,000, I want you to track in there, and I want you to show me year over year what items need to be inspected, replaced, maintained, et cetera, et cetera. It's like a service schedule on a car, kind of thing.
Super helpful,
right? And then you can go back to that pro forma and say, okay, in year 5, I know I'm going to take a hit of X amount, so we need to make sure that we've calculated.
And
that
I don't
properly.
think you have this set up as like a multi-year IRR, like with an exit, but you could build that model if you felt so inclined, and then you could literally look at, okay, I'm going to need X number of dollars this year. In this particular case, like this building's showing that it's spitting out over $30,000 a year. That should be enough to cover whatever light cycle item comes up in any given year, so you shouldn't have to feed that more. And this is assuming we have the issue in the next few years. And of course, if you do it then, you should be good for another 20, 30 years, depending on the item.
The goal of what we're trying to do is just, again, build a filter to know what deals to focus on. And when you see something like this, 5.5 cash on cash, kicking off 32,000, we can build out 5-year projections, but you can go blue in the face, and I'm guilty of it, doing analysis paralysis. So you hit a point where you go, okay,
I don't like
these
that.
are the style of deals. And then, you get a BCA if you're so inclined to kind of help. And even those are kind of guesstimates in general.
Yeah, well, my experience with the BCA is like they'll pick the higher number.
Always.
Right? Whatever the number is, they're going to pick the highest one because they want to cover them.
$100,000.
They want to cover themselves, right? And it's like, well, I know for a fact I can do this roof for 50. But at the top end's 100, so let's throw 100 in there.
Yeah, and honestly, it's what we're doing in this sheet, right? You build it out, you be conservative, and then the numbers spit out, and probably it'll be a bit better. So the one thing I'll talk about just really quick is when you see 5% cash on cash, because we've seen some different deals, one of the other things we look at, and this again confuses people, is we will show a stabilized value. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm not trying to say, hey, when you turn those tenants, this is what it's going to be worth. That's not the point. What we're looking at is what's the spread from what you purchase it at, so $3 million, to what we feel it would be worth if that scenario were today. right?
And that's all market rents?
Yeah, so I just put 18 and 15, just which are achieved in this, and then we put a 5.75 cap, which out there I feel comfortable with on kind of today's values, and then a price per door of 275. So that might be a sale, a refinance, but in any event, I'm giving a range of what I feel the value top end of the building would be, because if you're buying something for $3 million and it's a value add play and the exit's 3.5. Well, we don't really have a value add play here. Right? So
but
it's another
you got
metrics
a decent
to
spread.
have. So this deal, while it's a hybrid, direct to CMHC, cash flow is positive, it would sort of lend a little bit more to the left of a value add than a turnkey. And you can see that from the delta between 3 million to 4.7. So because of that, if you follow me here in the weeds, I'm going to see less of a cash on cash right now than I would on a more stabilized asset. Do you understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense or no?
Well, you're saying, okay, so when you say more stabilized, you're specifically referring to how much, like, the current state of the rents right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if these were more stable.
Okay. So because it's not stable now, that's why there's a bigger spread.
You got it. Yeah. You said a lot better than I did. But yeah, exactly.
Well, so you get the best of both worlds. Then you can go straight to CMHC. It will qualify. You know what you're in for. I think we said 585. But then you have a lift potential of looks like 1.6 million to fully stabilize. Now maybe you never achieve that or don't achieve that in the next 10 years, but you can get 80% of the way there in the next 5.
It's value to be unlocked over time.
Yeah.
So if we kind of compare this to the Dover deal, which is 15 units, I think, that was a little bit more of the stabilized size. So you're going to see more cash flow, but the spread between where it is and where it can be is not as high. It is not a value to be unlocked over time, just more cash flow.
It's nice when you can get into something that has the appreciation play, in this case forced, but forced over time, and you don't have to go crazy to do it. And and then you also have you got your cash flow, you can qualify, it works both sides, whereas there's people who used to, not so much anymore, obviously get into stuff strictly for appreciation. That's obviously not a good play in today's market. Strictly for cash flow, you can do that, and that's rarely wrong, but this is a nice balance of both.
The hybrids, right? Like they work really well. So now we're kind of existing in this middle of the road hybrid style plan, and then is it more gravitating towards a hybrid value add or hybrid turnkey? So last one is a little more turnkey. This is a little more value add.
So for those who like nerding out on the numbers, I think we went pretty good on this one.
Wildly in the weeds.
Yeah, we got into the weeds, lots of tangents. Hope you enjoyed that. And what do we want to tell them to do? If we had to tell them one thing, all the people who made it this far.
Become an insider.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of these deals. We're doing a lot of intake calls, buyers, sellers. Get on the list. We'll do an intake and kind of help guide you. Yeah,
be an insider. Then you get you get the weekly email. You get the value content stuff. You get the deals that nobody else gets to see. So I highly recommend that, guys. You can do that through the link below the video if you're on YouTube, and if you're on any of the other podcast platforms, it's in the show notes.
We should put our link our Instagrams on this too. I feel like that would help.
Yeah, we never say that, but you're welcome to reach out to any of us. We'll drop our handles in. I'll have to get yours to Artem so he can add them. But
that's okay.
But we'll drop our handles in.
Group one too, right?
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
that'd be great.
Okay, thanks guys. We will see you again next week.
Thank you.